In terms of where to stay, honestly, oh my God, baby crying. Hi, I'm Cynthia, also known as Simply Sin, and welcome back to my channel. So today we are switching things up a little bit and we're gonna talk about something that I could talk about forever, and that is travel. I know talking about travel right now in light of everything that's going on may seem a little tone deaf or like I have a lack of awareness, but I promise you that is not the case. If anything, what I'm trying to do with this video is to give you a little cheat sheet to have in the back of your pocket, because we will travel again. And so this is for when we can travel again, when it is safe to travel, we will be ready. Because I always say traveling well often requires planning well. I'm actually quite a fan of last minute trips, a little spur of the moment where you go off and you get a great last minute deal. So there is a place for that. But I also do think that with the realities of, job responsibilities, family responsibilities, budget limitations, that it is good for most of us, most of the time, to plan well so that we can travel well. So you're not having to think about, where do I go? What do I do? Is it going to be worth it? Am I going to enjoy it? Will it be worth my time and money? All of that. So if anything, this is a great time to do homework. Where do I want to go? Why do I want to go there? What kind of weather do I want? What kind of activities do I want? How much money do I want to spend? So that's what this list is. So without further ado, let's get into it. At the top of the list, I had to start with this because there's no surprise for anyone who knows me. This is a place that is near and dear to me, and that is Grenada. To be quite honest, before I met my husband, who's from Grenada, I knew very little. I did know it was an island in the Caribbean, which is more than quite a few people. I remember when I would tell people that my husband was from Grenada, they would say Grenada. And I was like, no, not the same continent, Grenada. So Grenada, also known as the Spice Island, is a lovely place to visit. So let me just picture this. They've got amazing beaches, which are never that crowded, because I have to say, when you talk about the Caribbean, I think a lot of people flock towards a few other destinations, maybe Jamaica, Aruba, etc. So in many ways, Grenada is not going to be overpacked and, with tourists and that sort of things. Grand Anse Beach, which is in the heart of St. George's and one of my favorites, can get crowded because it is a popular beach, but it's so expansive that you could find a little peaceful corner for yourself or your family or your loved one. In addition, a lot of the food in Grenada is so tasty, but it's not yet as popular as some other Caribbean dishes. Case in point, oil down, which is the national dish of Grenada. It's a stew comprised of pretty much all the most amazing things you could think of. There's chicken and dumplings and callaloo and coconut milk, all in this thrown together, and it's so tasty. It's a hearty meal that you probably want to have on a Sunday. And on a Saturday, after you're done visiting Carnage, which is where they have colonial buildings and everything, when you're done with that on a Saturday, you want to go to the Saturday market and get a lentil soup, because there's oftentimes, or there should be, a lady somewhere with a big pot serving some lentil soup, and you're going to want to have some of that because it is amazing. It always feels when we go there that our money goes quite far. And I do think some of the more popular Caribbean destinations, because they get so many tourists, everything is already priced for the tourists. However, in Grenada, since they serve a lot of locals, you will find that your money, dollar, euro, yen, whatever it is you're traveling with, will go quite far. Now, where should you stay? Well, there's a variety of options that are available. I always recommend folks use TripAdvisor. You can actually follow or check my TripAdvisor out. I have reviews for a lot of the places I stay at. But all I want to say is they've had like a hotel boom in the last 5 years. So there's new properties like the Silver Sands, where you would want to stay at that if you're ready to splurge. It is a splurge. Or there's the Royalton, that also opened quite recently, and I think they're priced competitively. And there is an Old Faithful, and don't get turned away by the word old, it's older, but they have recently renovated a lot of their suites, and that's Mount Cinnamon. It's really hard for me to pick one. I would say I give Mount Cinnamon Suites a slight edge. The property is beautiful, it's close to the beach and everything, but you should make sure to ask or request that you be placed in one of their more recently renovated suites. Number 2 on the list will have to be the Yucatan, Mexico. Now, a lot of you who are traveling, some of you have made it out to Mexico, because I think data shows that that's actually where most Americans have been traveling over the course of the pandemic. But I didn't say Cancun and I didn't say Tulum, because I would love to encourage folks to discover so much more that the rest of the region has to offer. So if you've rented a car, there's a lot less crowded places you could visit. For example, Chochola, and in Chochola there's an amazing hotel called Chablé Yucatan, one of the best places I've ever stayed at. You could also make your way to Maroma, you could make your way to Valladolid, which is this beautiful colonial little town in the middle of the Yucatan. So, step away from your comfort zone, step away from Cancun, step away from Tulum, and consider the greater region in terms of a travel destination. Number 3 on the list, Comporta, Portugal. I absolutely adored Comporta. There was something about this little quaint beach town that just spoke to me. It's charming, the little restaurants, the fresh seafood, the air, the whitewashed buildings. I loved it so much that ever since I've been on that trip, I think I've told everyone who would listen that they should consider going there. Interestingly enough, it was never intended as a main stop for us. Our itinerary was Madrid and then Lisbon, but we decided to detour and stop in Comporta for a couple of nights, and I am so happy that we did. It's only about an hour and a half's drive from Lisbon, so if you want the big city vibe, you've got Lisbon not that far away, but if you want like the quiet, relaxed vibe and not too crowded, so chill, also a super family-friendly town, then I would say Comporta. Now, where should you stay? Without a doubt, I'm giving you just one option. You should stay at Quinta de Comporta. That's where we stayed. Beautiful property that opened. I think it's been a couple of years now that they've been open. And I believe if you check out TripAdvisor, for example, their reviews, stellar. Now the next 2, we're getting into bucket list territory. We're getting into those super dreamy trips that do often, because of the length of time it takes to get there, because they're further out for most people. These are bucket list, and these are the types of trips that you want to plan really well, plan your budget, your itinerary, so you can really just enjoy your time there. I'm talking number 4, Seychelles. She sells seashells on the seashell. Anywho, scrap that. So Seychelles, what can I say? Super dreamy, beautiful water. If you're a beach water person, then this is definitely the place for you. It has so much to offer depending on what you're in the mood for. Do you just want tropical? Do you want rocks? There's a wide array of what you can experience when you go there. So where should you stay? I stayed at actually 2 Four Seasons properties, one on Mahé, which was definitely more like bustling and happening, and then Desroches, which is actually a completely private island. And so that had intimacy, and that was peaceful, and that was tranquil, and that was, when you feel like you want to just completely get away. So depending on what you're in the mood for, I would say you would decide on which island you want to stay at. So number 5 on the list, while we're in bucket list territory, is the Maldives. Yes, there was no way I was going to do this list and not include them. I think for some reason people think the Maldives and they think honeymoons and romantic destinations, but I do think it's a beautiful place to visit regardless of your relationship status. It's beautiful if you love beaches, it's beautiful if you're looking for something idyllic, it's beautiful if you want to retreat for yourself, and quite honestly, the Maldives are like 700 plus islands, and they're all quite different. When I visited, we stayed on 3 different islands, 3 different properties, and they all had very little in common. We stayed at a property which felt very rainforesty. We stayed in a property that felt like we had been dropped in the middle of the bluest ocean. And then we stayed in another property that felt like where the party happens. So there's a variety of islands you can stay at depending on what you're looking for. But I will say, it is a big trip, it's a long trip, it's the kind of trip you want to plan in advance for. Where should you stay? So I'm going to include in the description box a link to a blog post that I put together, and it's the 3 different properties I stayed at 3 different price points. So depending on your budget, depending on your style, you can decide where you could stay. But quite honestly, it's such a beautiful place that I don't even think you need to spend that much money on your accommodation, because you will be surrounded by beauty. Number 6 on the list, and this one I struggled with whether I should add it on here because it's become so popular because of Instagram and social media. But the fact is, it remains one of my favorite places that I've ever visited. And so it doesn't matter how many people have taken beautiful pictures there, it really is a worthwhile place to go to. And I'm talking about Marrakech in Morocco. You know what? A little side note, if you don't want to make it to Marrakech because it seems a little too much for you, I haven't been, but I keep hearing amazing things about Fez. So make a little footnote, Marrakech or Fez. So why should you go to Marrakech? What do they not offer in terms of food and art and design and shopping? You will go crazy shopping. There's so much that you could buy for your home, in fashion, your kitchen, everything. So yes, it's definitely a very well-deserved popular destination. In terms of where to stay, you know how you don't really order food anymore without checking out Yelp? Well, you shouldn't really be booking hotels without checking out TripAdvisor. There's so many really good options. And that's because Marrakech gets a lot of tourists, and so they invest quite heavily in making sure that they have a lot of beautiful accommodation for folks when they visit. So really the differences will really come down to location, will come down to your budget. I've dropped links to some of the places that I've stayed at, but they aren't the most recent reviews. These were a few years ago. So there might be newer properties that you may want to check out. But I do have to say something. The Royal Mansour, add that to your splurge list. If you're ready to go Marrakech and you want to splurge, Amounia, which I hope I'm saying right, and Royal Mansour. There's like a whole documentary about how like the Royal Mansour works and how they make everything work, and it's amazing. I should link that as well. But yeah, if you want to splurge, you could do that. Number 7 on my list, actually, I didn't expect to fall in love with because I went to Sardinia on a press trip. But it was an amazing press trip because we did a slow climb from the south of Sardinia all the way north. And in doing so, we stopped at all these amazing little towns, just little villages actually in Sardinia. Sardinians actually consider themselves Italian in a way, but in another way, not really. They consider themselves quite separate. So their history and culture, while in your head you think Italy, they also have quite a distinct and unique and separate history and culture. And the people were just so warm and willing to share stories and invite us in. And I'm telling you, lunch and dinner with the Sardinian family is like 3 hours. We ate so much. I don't think I've ever eaten so much in my life the way I ate in Sardinia. If you were maybe thinking of going to Italy, great. But I will highly encourage you to consider Sardinia, which offers beaches, it offers shopping. It has so much of what Italy has, but with a twist. And a really good one at that. So make sure you add Sardinia to your list. So there you have it. Those are my top 7. This list could have been 20 or 30 or even more than that because the world is so expansive and there's so much beauty. And I just want to flag that even though I have this list of 7, the reality is you can make the most of any place in the world that you choose to explore. It's about opening your heart, it's about opening your mind, it's about being able to receive love and kindness from strangers, and that, I miss that a lot, and I can't wait for us to get back to that. And I hope that if anything, what we've learned over the course of the pandemic and what we've been through is to not take things for granted, not take people for granted, and to really cherish those moments when we can have them. So here's to you putting together something that you could look forward to, something you could plan well, so you could travel well, and just make the most of our time on this planet. Because again, we only have one life, so it's really important that we make the most of it. So that's all I have for today. Thank you so much for tuning in and coming by or stopping by. I do hope you subscribe. Please subscribe. You could also follow me on Instagram, especially if you're interested in travel content. I have an Instagram highlight reel of so many of my trips. I also have some recaps on my blog, so if travel is your thing, I have a lot of info in that space. Thanks again, stay tuned, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.